All right. Good afternoon or good evening. We are live. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining me. This is the beginning of a new series that we're starting where we're just going to focus on core conversations around tech and especially database administration and really every other area around transitioning or navigating into a career in information technology. My name is Nnamdi Henacho, if you haven't met me before, and I'm the founder here at Enstar Technologies. And today I want to talk about, I'm going to jump right in, and I want to apologize if anybody had come on our regular the previously scheduled stream. We had technical difficulties with that. Again, we are just starting this Workforce Ready with NSTAR weekly series. And so this is our kind of like a relaunch. So we're dealing with technical challenges, but I promise our scheduling will get it right. And our timing, our scheduling, everything we're going to get it right. But wanted to make sure we started. I want to make sure we start regardless of how long this takes. I want to make sure we start. So thank you if you're hanging, if you're just seeing this abruptly, or if you're coming back and you found this, thank you for sticking with us. All right, I'm just going to jump right in. Today, I want to talk about is the database administrator role obsolete, right? Is it and that's a conversation people have like, okay, nobody is doing this anymore. And we're going to be exploring different topics similar to this one. But is the role of the database administrator, is that obsolete, especially with the way technology has advanced, with how far we have come, with tech, really, is there still a need for the DBA role? And that is a question I want to answer today. Um, Now, again, this question comes up a lot because of, AI and automation, DevOps and cloud and all of these buzzwords we throw out in tech. And it's almost like, oh, AI is coming for everybody's jobs. And we hear prominent names say, hey, in the next so amount of years, these jobs will not exist. And I want to, you know, ask you that question. Let me know. Have you heard this, that DBA jobs are dying out? I haven't heard it yet, but there's concerns, there's general. Nobody has said it to me directly, but it's almost like everybody's afraid for their job in this new AI era. And why is that so, right? One, because of the rapid evolution of tech, right? Cloud automation, serverless tech, all of that. Tech is evolving so fast. And so it almost feels like, okay, hey, is this job, under threat? Evolution of tech, rise of new technologies, managed database platforms, especially with the cloud. There's a lot of managed services now to where some of the standard things we do, the standard day-to-day of a DBA is things that now come pre-packaged, if I'll put it that way, as part of the tech suite. And so that's some of the conversations that leads to the fear, right? And then you hear of layoffs all the time. Big tech is laying off this amount of people. Microsoft laid off this amount, and this company laid off this amount, and Amazon laid off this. So those all kind of sow that seed of fear and make it feel like, okay, is this really a viable path for me to pursue, especially for one who's looking to make a change in their career? Um, so there's different things that will lead to that fear. So some of those things, and they are valid fears, especially when you start seeing layoff numbers and things happening around tech and the tech career path. But I want to emphatically say the truth is that the database administrator role, the DBA skills are evolving. They're not dying. What that means is the roles are shifting. There's now cloud-centric database administrators, there's database engineers, right? There's platform engineers, there's SREs. So the DBA role is evolving from just beyond the traditional production support. And so you can't get away with just being a, old school production support, performance tuning, backup and restore, patching type guy anymore. You have to evolve, right? The core responsibilities are still can't be, because a lot of the things we do requires human decision making, requires instant, a lot of analysis and looking at the data, right? You can gather the data using the tools you have, but the analysis of it and making decisions are human activities. And so some of those will not are still part of the core, right? But things around analyzing and looking at data integrity, performance tuning, right? Backup and recovery, compliance, security. Those core responsibilities don't change. They will not evolve. We're not going to stop having that be the case. But you definitely need to start developing that hybrid skill set uh, because of how advanced some of the technology is becoming. Um, it's there's so many of the things to where it's a little bit easier now. The tools are evolved and it's more efficient. And so you kind of have to expand your repertoire to stay relevant, right? And so if you go on LinkedIn, and I wish I could do a screen share, and you would see how the job descriptions are expanding, right? A database engineer role. So it's a database engineer is like a glorified DBA, right? DBA that knows how to do some reporting, that knows how some new snowflakes, you sprinkle in some cloud, and so you are a database engineer, right? So expansion, you see the database administrator role. I was chatting with somebody last week Sunday, and I was talking about how there's, in healthcare, there's that data component now. There's, and so being able to the DBA role is beginning to meander into that healthcare data, that finance specific data, governments, like in the government sectors, FedRAM, those type things. And so you need to start looking at beyond, again, just beyond the conventional knowledge and patterns of the standard DBA role, right? So you are starting off, of course, SQL for Microsoft people, Microsoft SQL and all the standard database platforms. But you need to start evolving, right? Expanding your skill sets, right? So now knowledge in things like PowerShell become very relevant and important. Becoming knowledgeable in some of the infrastructure platforms, AWS, Azure, right? Being knowledgeable in Amazon solutions, AWS, RDS, Postgres SQL. You have to expand the scope, of your knowledge base. Again, you'll start seeing this. You should start seeing this or noticing this in job descriptions. And it's no longer about babysitting the database, but problem solving, right? It's no longer where we watch the database, we make sure nothing is breaking. No, it's more being proactive in our approach when it comes to the role of the DBA. So how do we stay relevant? Again, go learn, go learn some cloud. I've told my students this a lot. I tell them I try to introduce, AWS and some cloud computing concepts, cloud technologies during our programs. But I tell my students that's the next year. Go again, build on that infrastructure knowledge, right? Get conversant with AWS or Azure. Um, Understand infrastructure as code, right? And monitoring. Get into, understand how, especially with monitoring, network operations center monitoring, all of those type of things, infrastructure. It's a big part now because infrastructure, a lot of it is moving to virtual, so virtualization technologies and then cloud solutions, right? So you need to start getting conversant with some of those technologies. And if any of those things sounds Greek, then you need to be booking a call with my people with us so we can get into it in more detail. Focus on automation without losing the fundamentals, right? This is very important. How do I get things done faster without, compromising the basics, the quality of the work. So these are things, again, that's where the PowerShells of the world come in, becoming proficient in PowerShell. Um, Let your resume start looking to make your resume hybrid, where it's showing both the traditional skill sets and highlighting all of the things, Snowflakes and Redshift and cloud, AWS and Azure. Those things, there has to be a sprinkle of those things in your resume. And then another one that most people really shy away from is a lot of us tech folks want to stay with the tech. We want to be proficient in the tech, but we don't necessarily care that much about the politics and the business. But this is the era where you have to stay close enough to the business, right? Stay close to business problems, right? You should be able to translate how your work solves business problems as a database administrator. And so that's that's kind of some things we need to start doing. But I'll wrap up this first session, and I know I'm keeping this brief because I really just want to start. But I'll wrap up this with this story or example. I always talk about, the core of technology when it comes to platforms that the foundations of tech, right? The career paths that I will consider the foundations of tech, and I'll start with like servers, like server administration, networking, network administration. That those without the network, I don't care what your thing is running on, it's not going to stand without those things. So server administration, network administration, data data administration, right? It's data and then core programming. So and I'm not talking about, because again, the front end development is you can build websites now with minimal effort with AI with the right prompts. You have a website. You can do a lot of front end work, build the MVPs with using AI. Right? When I talk programming, talk about object-oriented back-end development, right? Assembly programming, those type in there where you're programming machine. Because again, if you see AI, this is are being they are being built by engineers, the back-end programmers, core programmers. And so those core foundational areas are never going to go away. And that is where you want to immerse yourself. Data is one of those aspects that will always, all of these things are machinery of tech. The tech evolution is driven on data. I'll tell you that the tech evolution, the advancements of artificial intelligence is all data driven. And that should be your assurance as a data expert that your job is not in jeopardy, but your skill sets need to evolve. I hope this makes sense. Wanted to quickly get that one first video in. Thank you for spending this, joining me on this first one. We're back again next week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for Workforce Ready with NSTAR. I'll be your host, Namdi. God bless you. Have a most productive rest of your weekend.